am joining you from the middle of the woodlands, which, as you can hear, there's so much wildlife, so much nature in here, birds cheeping away. It's a lovely little haven for nature. Our story begins with clearing some of the woodland. The brambles are as tall as we are, so we have used a brush cutter to clear, make some space into the woods. When we do this, we can then see that there is a large volume of trees that are quite unhealthy, or they are standing dead wood. We reached out to the Forestry Commission in order to ask for some advice and support in the best way to manage this and to look into a felling licence. Lovely chaps from Forestry Commission came in. They had a really good look around the woodlands. Sadly, they brought to our attention something called the spruce beetle. I call it the Ipidus dipidus bug. It's not quite how it's pronounced, but this is an 8-toothed spruce bark beetle. The beetle infects trees which are unhealthy. So what it does is it burrows into the bark of the spruce tree, and then by doing this it damages the tree, and eventually the tree will die, which obviously is not a great thing. The trees that we have are particularly susceptible because our trees are very poor quality. They have been planted too close together, and in the 60-100 years that they've been growing, they haven't been thinned or maintained. If you've got a healthy tree, the sap within the tree, as the bug tries to go in, the sap pushes the beetle back out again. So the beetle can't penetrate healthy trees. Whereas the susceptible trees are those that are damaged or poor quality, and their sap can't push out the bugs because they don't have enough of it because they're unwell. So our trees are particularly susceptible to the beetle. They've had a look around and we don't have the beetle currently. However, what they have said is that they would like us to remove our spruce trees in order to be a preventative measure. The beetle has come over from Europe and has been found in quite a lot of Kent and some areas moving up to Norwich. So it's spreading within the UK, and the Forestry Commission are asking that people with spruce trees remove them completely in order to try and create a fire break, in order that the spruce beetle doesn't get up north to where all of our logging industry is. So we don't have to do anything, we could leave them. However, if at some point down the line we become infected with the beetle, the forestry health team can give us an order, which means that within 28 days we have to chop down all of the trees and burn them on site, as they would be all classed as infected material. We had a long discussion about this, and we decided that we think it's better to be preemptive and to be able to remove the trees within our own time frame, rather than ending up in a position where we have to just chop them all down immediately. Very disappointing news for us, because we bought this piece of land because of its beauty and because it has a nice little woodland, and sadly we are just about to remove a heavy, significant amount of trees, fully grown, mature trees, in order to support the Forestry Commission in their desire to remove spruce from this area. In the process of removing the spruce trees, it's not just as easy as chop them down, log them, sell them off for firewood. Because they are at risk of this invasive species, and even once chopped they can still be at risk for about a year and susceptible to the beetle. The movement of the spruce tree and logs and material is heavily monitored and controlled. When we are ready to chop down the trees, we need to have the forestry health people come in. They will inspect the trees that we are due to chop down, and they will either deem them as infected or safe. Infected, burn straight away on site. If they're safe, then we have a 3-month period that we can chop down those trees, but those trees need to be stacked, and from that the forestry health need to come back in and recheck that the logs have not subsequently been infected. Once that has happened, those logs can then leave our site and move on to being processed. Now, again, because they're restricted, they have to go to a government approved site, or a site that has a license to manage the spruce timber. So again, we're relatively limited as to the places that we can send the wood once it's been off site. Other options are that if we take the trees down, we can debark them and then the timber can stay on site. But again, we've got to get express permission for that to happen. And if we chip all of the wood material, the chippings then wouldn't be susceptible to infection from the spruce beetle. So there are a couple of options. However, realistically, debarking or chipping full-size trees is probably not going to be efficient, especially when we kind of look at the quantity of spruce trees that we actually have on site. As part of this discussion with Forestry Commission, I have then been around and tried to map the woodlands to identify what trees that we have within the woodland, how many of those are spruce trees, what sort of quality they are, how much of a risk, and what kind of areas of priority we need to focus on. Oh, there's a pheasant just behind us. Probably not going to be able to see him from all the way over here. The joy of our plot is there are so many pheasants around and they are beautiful, and they're relatively unaffected by us being around. That moves on to the spread of trees that we have. I have spent quite a lot of time collating the information, working out what trees we've got, mapping them all so that we've got a vague idea of what we've got and where it's located within the properties. We have divided our woodland into what we now refer to as 3 sections. We have triangle, which now we've done some trimming and removed quite a lot of the brambles to get into that area. It's not a triangle, it is a square, but we still call it the triangle. We've got the main block, which is the big L shape, and then right at the bottom of the woodland we've got, in the main block we have 90 oak trees. We've got about 180 larch trees, and we've got about 100 spruce trees. We do have some other trees in there, a very small amount of kind of mixed. We've got a few sycamore trees, we've got a couple of lime trees, one single hazelnut tree, a few hollies, we've got quite a lot of elderflower, a cherry, we've got a beautiful ash tree, which the Forestry Commission said is in really good condition, really healthy, and that's probably due to the fact that there's very little ash anywhere else around our property. That runs through the main block and down to the glade. The triangle is literally 98% spruce. We suspect that they were planted to use as trench props, and they were just left. They were planted when they were needed, no longer needed. The land was left, which meant that the trees just overgrew and no one maintained them anymore because they weren't needed. So that triangle area is literally all has to be removed. This all sounds like bad news, but everything we take down we are going to be replanting. So we have a whole variety of new trees that we want to be planting. So they're all going to be natural broadleaf. What is very devastating news to start with the removal of probably about 300 spruce trees, will result in us replanting about 500 new broadleaf natural trees.